All right, welcome everybody. Just want to make sure that we're live, so I'm going to switch the screens really quickly. So yeah, hopefully you all can see me, and I'm going to pull my slides up and just jump into things. Sorry for the delay. I was backstage waiting for my intro, but I'm Mike Roberts. I'm the founder of Creating Coding Careers. We've been doing a lot of work in the past, I guess, 5 to 8 years or so in the ServiceNow ecosystem. So some of you may know me from there. I'll jump right into why we're here, which is freelancing. And my journey, it started several years back. I was a um, trainer, and I started taking on these interesting side projects in the evening around Flash, Adobe Flash. And one day a client asked if I could potentially build a solution for them. And I did and delivered it. And then next thing you know, I had more people asking me to build projects than I had time in the day. And so I had to actually hire another dev to help me build out these projects. Before I knew it, it was a full fledged agency, and I'd earned over $250,000 in that first year. And needless to say, I had to quit my main job to nurture the side job, which was now a full time thing. I stumbled into it. It wasn't anything I anticipated at the time. It was easy for me to find gigs on Elance and VWorker, and now, of course, there's a whole bunch of other Fiverr and Upwork, very similar platforms. But the the reason why I bring this up, my story may be relevant to you because I think it solves the experience paradox that a lot of people face, which is companies want you to have a few years of experience. You may have earned your CSA. You spent hours in your PDI. So now you know what a glide record is, but that's not enough in a very crowded job market. And so this is the frustration I know that is shared by many people, and I'm here to solve today. So the way you get experience, if no one will give you a chance, is that you use a different door. And so the door that I'm going to recommend that you use is freelancing. So if you think about it, what if you stopped spending your time applying for jobs and instead you created them? What I mean by that is finding small engagements to solve real pain points for customers. And not only does this give you the opportunity to build out a portfolio, it gives you real world hands on practice that I think a lot of people are sort of, let's say, reluctant to spend hours deving in a PDI and not really having much to show for it. So the goal would be for you to build not only your experience, but get paid while you're doing it. And so these are some examples of things that you could be building, but this is by no means an exhaustive list. These are just things that I think a lot of the partners that we talk about or talk to in the ecosystem, a lot of the companies that use the platform might be interested in piecing out because they're not so high in the backlog that they're in the space and the domain of the main staff, but they're also important enough that they could add value for customers. So they're kind of middle to bottom of the backlog, which is the perfect place for you to pitch and make it super easy. So the first step to executing the strategy is to not be a generalist. So don't think of, I want to know all of the platform, all of the pieces, because even people that have been in the industry for a really long time, they just can't do that. It's just not possible. So instead, you want to focus in on things that you enjoy doing, master catalog items or figure out how Flow Designer works and really figure out like what's your niche, what's the area that you want. And then you're going to use your PDI as your little workshop, right? I know you can't do everything on your PDI, but if there are things that you want to do that you're still learning that you want to help with, reach out to me. We have instances, we have some training opportunities for people. And so for the most part, you can do everything on your PDI except for a few things, and then you can get help from partners and people in the ecosystem for those things that you just can't do on a PDI. Once you've built a couple polished examples, then you're just going to record a video of the work that you've done, showcase your skills. You can use Loom, you can use a whole bunch of other tools, but you want to get that down and in a place where you can present it. Now, once you've got your little bit of a project uh, portfolio, now you're going to start small and you're going to think about, well, how could I do something really simple on things like Fiverr or Upwork? You're going to filter for ServiceNow. You're going to look for fixed price bids because those are going to be easier to win than the hourly contracts. We don't have time to get into all those details, but fixed price bids very beginning of your career. Later on, you'll start to be able to do hourly gigs. You can talk to your local partners. And the thing that I didn't do well was I stayed on the digital platforms too long. And instead, I should have transitioned earlier in my agency career to getting out in the streets and talking to small business owners face to face, networking and being at events, because you'll find a different customer base. One, customers that can pay more and better. And two, they'll be close to you, they'll be local, and there's a better chance that they'll be able to hire you permanently versus a lot of the work that's being thrown out on the internet. And it's easier to land, but it doesn't land to longer term gigs. Look at LinkedIn, try and network with folks. Look at folks at smaller companies or partners that might be on the up and come, and maybe they're not elite status, but they want to get there. And so they could be looking to bring on additional people to help them get through a volume of projects. Once you show that you have your certifications already, that could be of value to them. They need to have a certain number of people certified on their staff. That alone could be a value. Again, we want to differentiate ourselves, make sure you're bringing something unique to the table and getting an opportunity to talk and engage, which kind of breaks through all the noise, all of the AI submitted resumes or the one click resumes that you're seeing online. So think about your local nonprofits. Think about friends and family members who may not be using ServiceNow, but they might know somebody that works in an office or at a company that uses the platform, right? Whether it's a school district or a banking institution, they're going to be able to kind of help you figure out who might have it as a customer. But your low hanging fruit is going to be the partner directory, right? It's online, it's available for you to peruse. And so let's just start reaching out to people at the smaller or single focused partners in the ecosystem. So don't repeat my mistake. Really try and make sure that you're out there finding the gigs. Next, you'll want to pitch the project. Craft, what is it's not I need X experience, right? It's not the job rec. Instead, it's I see you need help with X. I specialize in that. Here's a 2-minute video of something similar that I've built, right? So your pitch needs to be really focused on delivering a tangible benefit to the customer. So an example of that pitch is on the screen. But again, it's really just about setting expectations and then managing them, over communicating. And think just a $100-200 gig that's well done, that has a successful outcome for a customer, could save you a ton of time of just randomly reaching out to people, pitching your resume and how you're a great fit for a job. Instead, it cuts through all of that and just shows them this is what you're able to do. So the last step is making sure that you extend the initial experience you're having with people into something that you can translate into the experience that's going to replace that 2 to 3 that people are looking for when they're interviewing for a permanent role. So you're going to use the formula that I show here, which is describe the role, describe the client. So it could be a small business solution provider or the actual name of the company if they'll permit you. Then you're going to use what's called the STAR method. So you're going to talk about the situation, the task, the action, and result. So something like you developed and you deployed 3 new catalog items for the HR department, right? Very tangible. And so the results of that are something that you can again use as a filibuster when you're talking to someone on a phone screening or on an interview for an actual job. And you're going to use these projects as like a step towards a permanent offer. So I'm going to rip through. I know we're a little over time. I'm going to rip through the rest of these just so you guys can again see these. I'll also share the slides. So if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn and ping me, I'll share these with you. But the most important thing for you to think about is that, when you start to think about creating jobs and not waiting for an opportunity, you will have more experience solving real world problems. You'll have a lot of tangible work that you can use to talk about and to get people intrigued enough to reach out to you. And then obviously you're going to ask for testimonials. So you could even have like 5-star reviews. This is going to give you the confidence that you need to go into interviews. And, you've done not only the work, but you can talk about it. You can talk about your experience. That's a real valuable way for you to sort of flip the narrative. So a couple more things I want to challenge you to, if you accept it this weekend, pick a niche, right? A micro niche. Try and niche down as like tightly as you can into one small cluster of the whole ServiceNow ecosystem. Build your portfolio, record some of your project work. It could be you building something, it could be you demoing something that you've built, and then throw it up on LinkedIn. And I challenge you to, get that out by Monday. Get something small, doesn't need to be huge, out there, and use that as the sort of like proving ground that you can do this, and then start looking for those gigs. So I'm going to leave my contact information up here, and I'm going to try and answer some questions in the chat, although it might throw us out. But here, let me move this over to the screen so you guys can see it. And then, as you can see my note here, you got this, right? This is super doable. I've done this before. I have, like I said, went from no freelance experience at all to 250K first year doing it with like no background and no experience running a business. And that side hustle, before they called them side hustles, it truly did replace my job very quickly. You don't have to take that same route. You could just use this to get a couple projects. Then once you get a couple projects, some confidence, you got a portfolio, it's going to make networking and landing a permanent role somewhere way easier. Way easier. So if you guys have questions, I'll open up the Q&A. I don't know if I'm allowed to stay on the stage for longer, but I'll stay here for a few more minutes.
You're good to go, Mike. You can stay as long as you want.
Awesome. So yeah, I can stay for a few minutes. I know we started a little bit later. In terms of like nights and weekends, that's kind of how I started. It was like, let me do this after work. And then next thing you know, customers were like hitting me up while I was at work. And that was actually why I had to leave, because I was just like, I can't. But it wasn't a time where we were working remote. So I was in the office, and they were like, why are your Wi-Fi hotspot on? And I was like, don't worry about that. Nobody needs to worry about that Wi-Fi hotspot. But this is like 10, more than that, like 15, 20 years ago. So now I think it may be possible for people to like hold down both until you're super comfortable you can do this. But if you've already made the leap, or if you unfortunately were forced out somewhere and you've got full-time focus, get after it, because like there's no better way for you to get paid while you're learning than to do some freelance work. It's not for everybody, because it's really tough if you're trying to not only um, find projects, but then fulfill them and complete them. So it's not something that I could personally sustain, but it is definitely something that it is a great catalyst when you're like, hey, how do I survive while I'm trying to get into this ecosystem? So when you say recommended platforms, I'm not sure what you mean. Maybe about like searching again. I think go to the ServiceNow partner directory, hit up all the smaller partners, hit up the offshore partners. They're always looking for Americans that they could sort of like work with you and get introduced to newer companies, newish companies to them. So there could be some unique opportunities there. Careful what you get into. You want to make sure that like you're doing business with people that are reputable. But I would say that's going to be your number one. Like, use the partner ecosystem. And then again, don't just focus online. What partners are geographically located close to where you live? Go to their meetups, go to their snugs, go to events that they put on in the community, and start building relationships with them. They will oftentimes be really happy to have a place where they can give like what we call seconds, right? Things that are just like, this is really not enough for their team. But rather than give it to another partner, they might but say, hey, Mike, we've got some work. It's not really a good fit for us, but if you're interested, I can connect you. And they may just connect you and be like, here you go. Like, here's some business. Um, Not likely. ServiceNow is a pretty expensive platform. So usually the people that are on it have the means, but it's also possible for you to just help with the overflow work. They could be just inundated and they need someone to come in and handle some of the real grunt work that can't be automated yet. Um, the recommendation for switching from freelance to full time is keep your foot on the gas in terms of your outreach and in terms of reaching out for full-time jobs. Like, just keep doing the normal things that I pitch. You may have already, read my book, Hacking the Job Search. Everything in there could be layered on top of freelancing as a way to gain experience, keep some dollars coming in, and build the portfolio that you need to convince folks. It may not take 2 to 3 years for you to convince someone you have 2 to 3 years worth of experience, but Um, it's possible sometimes you have contractors that don't want you to work with anybody else. They want exclusive, and that's fine. Ask them to then pay you for full time, 40 hours a week. If they're not willing to pay you and take you off the market, then they just get you for that sort of fractional component. I think learning to stand your ground, even when you're early in the ecosystem, is important because if they don't want you to work with other people or other contracts, then they need to be willing to pay the premium to take you off the market. So that's all the questions I see so far. If there are any other questions, feel free to drop them in there. I'll hang out for a few more minutes and answer questions. But yeah, CJ, like seeing you. Appreciate that. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else in here. Hopefully, I gave you at least 15 minutes of really good advice. And again, if anybody wants to reach out more directly with some more questions, comments, concerns, feel free to shoot me a message, connect with me on LinkedIn. I pretty much accept every connection. That's in our pro tip. You got to connect with people on LinkedIn. You got to get above 500 because until you're up to 500, it shows the actual number of connections you have. Once you hit 500, it just says you're over 500. So that's like the LinkedIn trick, like one of many. But connect with me. I'll be one of those first 500 if you haven't hit that yet. More than happy to help. Just create opportunities for people because there's plenty of room for everybody to eat. So, all right. I'm gonna check one more time, see if there's any more questions in the Q&A. What about risks of current employer catching on? Yeah, there's always a risk, but again, you're gonna do this weekends and evenings, right? That's why they call it a side hustle. So I would suggest you probably don't want to, if you're already at a partner, go try and work side hours with their competitor or customers, right? So don't violate any of the conditions of your employment. But if your current employer finds out that you're working in the evening and you're trying to upskill yourself and move on, that should motivate them to either help you and like Gary Vee says, he's happy when his people move on because that means that they're doing bigger things. But if they want to hold you back and you're not violating company policies, that could be a sign that you need to like make this move as fast as you can. But again, I think a lot of people aren't really ready for freelancing in terms of doing it for a really long period of time, right? It's a good transition. It's a good way to break in. Once you've done it for a while, you'll probably realize it's way easier to just get an hourly check, just go work somewhere, punch the clock, get paid, have a regular 40 to 50 hour work week because freelancing can be a lot of hours at not a high rate when you're first starting. But just remember the value of it is you're shortening that 2 to 3 years of experience that is going to be required to get on the radar of someone that can hire you. And then when they hire you, they're going to hire you at a higher position than what they would if you can't show that you have all that experience. A lot of folks will be willing to give somebody a chance, especially if you pass your CSA, you show that you're scrappy, you can hustle, and you do the things that will help you stand out from all the noise that's in the ecosystem right now. It's never been easier to stand out because 95% of people are going to do the same thing. They're just going to push the one click Indeed apply button. They're not going to get in their PDI and hustle and work and build projects and show passion. And so when you do that, you're going to stand out amongst the crowd super fast. So if you can make 50, 100, a couple $100 a week doing the practice you already need to do anyways, saying, right? Like you got to get on it. Um, yeah, the next cert you should get after CSA is in the domain you are most interested in working in. So, like, don't just go into a domain because you're like, oh, I hear a lot of people are working in that space. Go into it because you're interested in it, you like it, and you would be motivated to do a lot of work on your own, whether there's a freelance project or not. So, like, I could tell you, go into HR, right, or go into GRC, or go into, but if I tell you to go into something and you're not interested in it, then it's not going to work. So the next cert is going to be like a cert in something that you really enjoy working in. Like when I started to realize that the ServiceNow ecosystem is really about requesters and fulfillers internally, I'm like, well, what about customers? And it's like, oh, that's CSM, that's customer service management. Maybe you want to get certified in implementing customer service management. Like that's your jam. So go deep, get certified in it, and then try and find projects where you can pick off that work. All right. I'll give you guys 60 more seconds. If another question comes through, um, happy to stick around and answer that. And if not, I'll jam. It's been great seeing a few people come through. That's awesome. When are you opening your AI company? Whew, yeah, I'm probably gonna miss the whole AI company bandwagon, but I got lots of thoughts. I don't want to divert this conversation, but uh anything else? I don't see any. So again, I encourage you, you got this, but it is gonna take you getting out there and like getting after it. So don't be afraid to just like put the time in, put some of that extra time on that PDI, right? Work that PDI, and then don't be shy to get out in the streets. It's going to dramatically increase the amount of networking success you're going to have and better projects if you actually just like walk in and introduce yourself to a human face to face, right? That's the game changer. I promise you, you could make way more than $200,000 as a beginner, a brand new person in this ecosystem, if you're willing to like read some sales books and get out and go door to door to partners in your ecosystem. But most of you aren't going to do the work, so you can only get that if you're willing to like some of your extroverts. I'm not. You got to be willing to do that extra grinding on the sales too. All right. Thanks, everybody.